Hello. In this tutorial, we will learn how to do a API testing using Postman. To write a test case for the API using Postman, you have to find this test tab on your request. Here I will just write one sample test and send this request. To see result, you have to find this test results on bottom response area, and you can see that your test has passed. So we'll go through details of how to write test in this tutorial. Before that, we will discuss what does it mean to test API. For example, this is my API where I send one parameter page 150 and I get some response from server, a JSON response. According to specification, when I send 150, I should get some information for this page 150 where, let's say for example, total should be 12, per page should be 6, total pages should be 2. These are your API specification. In API testing, we have to write test cases to make sure that we get expected response. Let's go ahead and learn some common test cases which are written by API QA and API developers. To test response, you need this response of server into some object. And in case of Postman, it is a JavaScript object. It is very simple to get that response. So you just have to use this PM object, which is a predefined object which consists request and response for every API. You can parse this JSON into any variable or a JavaScript object. This variable we will use for all our next test cases which we will be checking. In our first test case, we will try to assert values of fields in response. So here is test case. We are again using this PM object, and you can see that this from PM object we parse JSON and get entire JSON into this response object. And with this syntax of pm.expect, which is a standard syntax for this test case, we can pass that for JSON, our expectation for page field value is 150, and we write this one line for that purpose and send this request. Now in test result, you can see that our test has successfully passed. We asserted for 150 and in response we got 150. Similarly, you can write test case for every field. Let's see example how to write a test case for multiple fields. So it is pretty straightforward and easy. You just have to check for a different field. Like in this example, I am checking for page and total should be 150 and 12. And if I execute this test case, it should pass. Next, we will see how to test response status code, which is fairly easy. You just have to check with this syntax pm.response. You must be wondering what is this 2.have or 2.eq1. These are actually chai assertion libraries which you can use. I will share link of this library in description, and there are many more other methods which you can use for assertion purpose. You can also check for response status from a list of response status. Let's say for example here I have 200 and 201, and if any of one response is written, my test should success. So I will just use this method of chai assertion library. You can even check status message with 2.have status method and just pass the status string. If you see on your screen 200 OK, so OK is actually status string which we are trying to check from this test case. You can write test case for header as well. So headers are in this part of response. Usually you can test any header which is actually in specification. As per requirement, you can consider which headers you want to test. You can also have your test assertion against the environment variable. In this example, I have this page 150 as a response field, and a request field is also page which I'm passing 150, and this is environment variable value. So we can check that your response page is equal to value of request parameter. For this assertion, we are using pn object and trying to get page field with this syntax, and we are trying to check equals with page val. Page val is actually value of page value environment variable. So this is syntax to get environment variable value. Let me quickly show you what is value of this environment variable. So this is page value and its current value is 150. Page value is expected to be 150 and this test is expected to pass. Let's go ahead and send request and see what happens with our test cases. Okay, so we will go to result, and you can see that 6 out of 7 test cases are passed and 1 is failed with this error message expected 150 to deeply equal 150. So this is most common issue faced by many developers and QAs, and the reason for this failure is because environment variable stores value by default in string. So page val is a string and page is not a string. So we are trying to compare number with a string, and that is the reason we get this error. To solve this error, we have to simply parse this environment variable value into integer. Let's parse this environment variable into integer. And for that we have this simple JavaScript method parseInt, where we will convert this string into a number that is integer. Our test should ideally pass. Let's go ahead and check. Okay, so you can see that now that our test has successfully completed and all tests are pass. I will show you one more common error which usually developers and testers will face. That is if you give a wrong field value. So my response body has page, but if I try to get something like page 1 and send, your test case will fail with an error expected undefined. So that means that this field is not present in page body. So be careful about this kind of mistakes, and if you get such kind of failure, then now you know that what thing you have to check. Also, our assertions are test case sensitive, like okay and this, like small case okay and uppercase okay are not same, and your test case will fail. One more bonus tip, Postman itself has provided some common test cases which you can easily create. For example, if you want to check the response time of your request, you can just find this in your right side of test tab into request time. If you click here, a test is automatically generated. Similarly, you can explore some other tests, simple tests which are already provided by Postman, and you can write much more complex tests with such script to go and check anything in your response body or in headers and even in cookies. I hope this video helps you understand what is API testing using Postman. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to write them down in comment section. Thank you very much for watching this video.